In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I love children's sermons so much. I mean, I'm not brave enough to actually sit up there and do them, but I love seeing the imagination of kids as they kind of work through, these things like God and family and church and community and things like that. Imagination really, it matters. And for me, my imagination may be broken a little when I try to envision Jesus casting out the unclean spirits in today's gospel reading. I have a hard time thinking about an exorcism without thinking of the Hollywood version of one, where you got a nightgown, you're in bed, the lights are dark, and there's a Catholic priest. My experience leads me to expect this. But what jumps out at me the most is that in the face of the exorcism in our gospel reading today, the theatrics don't seem to capture their attention the same way that it would me. They don't say, dude, check out that demon that Jesus cast out of that guy. Instead, they say, what is this, a new teaching with authority? He commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him. This story comes from our Gospel of Mark, the oldest of the Gospels, and the one that we'll be reading the most during Epiphany. Unlike the others, we don't hear about a baby in the manger, a star, wise men, Bethlehem, any of that. Instead, in action-packed Markian fashion, we're plunged directly into the heart of Jesus' ministry, which starts with him being baptized in the Jordan River by his cousin John. But why should that difference matter to us? I think it's because it has to do with authority, with Jesus' authority as the Messiah, the Son of God. Matthew and Luke tell of his special birth from a virgin mother, father who was descended from King David in the town of Bethlehem. In Jesus, we see the prophecy of Isaiah fulfilled, that Jesus would come as a baby, and in the book of Micah, that Jesus would be born in Bethlehem. His miraculous birth marked him as the Messiah even before his first cry. In contrast, Mark skips right past his early years and goes straight to Jesus as an adult. He's baptized, he's calling his disciples, and now he enters the synagogue to teach. Like the other gospel writers, he is establishing Christ's authority. Mark's retelling of this episode in the synagogue is meant to persuade those who are listening that yes, Jesus of Nazareth was and is the Christ. Before the drama of the exorcism, though, Mark plants a crucial seed, the impact of Jesus' teaching. He wasn't like the scribes. His words held a startling authority, a power that left the listeners astounded. If you could imagine the best teacher you ever had, or maybe the best teacher that you have right now. For me, I remember my teacher in high school, Mr. Zelmer, and his passion for Beowulf and British literature gave me a lifelong appreciation of the classics. I think that's the kind of teacher Jesus is portrayed in Mark's gospel, someone who passionately dedicates himself to serving others. The men appear awestruck as they realize Jesus' authority is unlike any that they had ever known. This wasn't a ho-hum teacher, he was the real deal. And it's while they're realizing this that the man with the unclean spirit calls out, "What have you done with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One." This spirit knows that Jesus is the Christ, and he feels threatened, I think. And I wonder, though, how many times has this man been to the synagogue, sitting quietly before this time of seeing Jesus? He was part of the synagogue. He was part of the community. All it took, though, was a scolding from Jesus of be silent and come out of him for this man to be freed. The men in the synagogue witnessed a miracle, and this morning we witnessed Jesus' authority. It's the Messiah who has the authority to open us up and to cast out the demons that separate us from God's purpose. And what are those demons? They're the things we hear and say that make us seem less than the beloved children made in the image of God that we are. Unclean spirits can be very believable and trick us into believing we're worthless or beyond hope. We all wrestle with unclean spirits at times, I think. Not the red tight wearing, pitchfork yielding kind of unclean spirits, but ours are the things that pull us away from Christ. When Christ calls us to love our neighbors, unclean spirits begin to catalog all of the reasons they're not our neighbors. Christ calls us to forgive. Unclean spirits help us to find new ways of nursing a grudge against that other person. Christ tells us to seek justice and righteousness for all. Unclean spirits whisper that all those people need to do is just pull themselves up by their bootstraps. We all have our own demons that we wrestle with, but God is bigger than all of them. They don't have a shot against the good news of Jesus Christ, and there is so much good news in those 7 short verses. We are not our own demons. We are so much more than the worst of ourselves. Jesus sees past all of that, as he did for our possessed man in the synagogue, and sees us for who we are, precious children of God. In those times when we feel everything is lost, when we feel the most alone or in despair, we must remember, just as for the man in the synagogue, Christ changes everything for us. We can cling to Christ's love and authority, and the authority on display here is unlike any other. But I think that authority can sometimes be a struggle for us, and our fight against authority is almost hardwired into our DNA as Americans. The British are coming, the British are coming. Or the less well-known quote of the Revolution, quick, toss the tea in the harbor. From the beginning, we learned to revolt against injustice or against forced authority, but we've forgotten how to turn it off. We don't always have to fight. Christ isn't here to entrap us. He came to free us. The nature of Christ's authority, which saved a man's soul on that Sabbath day so long ago, is something hard to find the words for or to fully believe or understand sometimes. But if we can learn to lean into it, it can be known and felt in the depths of our soul. Thanks be to God.